And so part of this workshop, Jay, is just us kind of sharing uh, how we've kind of come to our curriculum and how the curriculum for net generation and Canadian tennis has kind of evolved into what it is, and you know what we like so much about it, and how they're different, how they're similar, not necessarily which ones are better, but just how we have gotten to where we are today, right?
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, right? I think, I'm going to give a very brief history on how everything came about, how, 10 and under, net generation, kids tennis, whatever it's called, using the scaled equipment, like how that all came about, right? I mean, it's being done for years, but, quite honestly, in North America, it's pretty new to us, right? Especially in the US, it's very new, right? I mean, I think it was introduced in the US sometime around 2006, 2007. It really started to gain traction about 7 years ago, right? When the ITF mandated that, all tennis nations had to use the scaled equipment in tournament formats. So the USTA got on board with that at that point, and now, now it's being used quite a bit. And so I think, taking a look at where it came from and how it's to be used is really is key, because quite honestly, when you look at some of these nations like Canada, Belgium, France, that have been using this equipment for a while, and they're really starting to shape and detail their curriculum and give that knowledge to their coaches, and get coaches in the trenches who are really motivated and driven, right? They're really producing some very strong players. And what you're seeing in Canada in the top players, right, in the men and the women, is based around those players that came from that system that was began 17 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So it really is a powerful tool when it's used well and coaches have a good understanding of it.
And I think that's a great intro right there. And Jason, I'm gonna quickly give your bio here for everybody, and then I'm gonna let you just continue to talk about the NetGen and the Canadian system. And when you're done, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the NetGen experience for me and my staff, and how it's kind of molded our curriculum. And I'm sure we're going to go back and forth a bit about how you come to your curriculum as well. But I think having this understanding of how and where we got to where we are now is really important. So I don't want to mess this up, so I want to make sure I get this right. But Jason Joseph is a level 4 high performance coach and a level 4 junior development coach, the highest level of sports science coach education levels in the United States. He is also a USTA High Performance and Tennis Canada High Performance Certified Coach and USPTA Elite Professional. As I mentioned before, he also sits on the USPTA Eastern Board of Directors as the Educational Committee Chairman. So Jay, I'll let you run with it, and good luck.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So, as I was saying before, we haven't had red, orange, green courts forever, right? Those have come about recently in the United States, probably in the last 7 to 8 years. It's been in Canada for about 16, 17 years. And it's been in other countries for 30 years, right? Places like France, Belgium, Switzerland, they've been using modified courts, modified equipment for over 30 years, right? So just a little history on that, right? Where did that all come from, right? Why did scale equipment come into play, right? Because quite honestly, I think everybody on this webinar right now probably started with, right, adult-sized equipment, adult-sized rackets, yellow balls, full-size court, right? Some of us maybe even wooden rackets. So the idea of the smaller court dimensions and the modified equipment comes from the notion that kids want to play the game of tennis, right? People want to play the game of tennis, right? In every sport that kids do, right, they want to play. They don't necessarily want lessons. They want to play. In soccer, kids want to play, right? In basketball, kids want to play. In every sport, kids want to play. We don't have people walking into our club saying, boy, I can't wait to stand in lines and drill today. We don't have people that say, God, I can't wait to go out and make a perfect follow through. They walk through our doors because they want to play a sport. They want to play a game, right? So we need to be able to understand that. When people walk through our doors, they want to be able to play. And the whole idea of us instructing a sport is based on the idea of playing the sport, right? When kids come in, they want to play. When kids come in, they want to play, right? And adults too. So modern methodology and pedagogy, methodology is just the method that you use as an instructor, right? To be able to give information to your students and help them to be able to develop. Pedagogy, especially in athletics, is getting the body to change and be able to do what you want it to do, and the athlete to be able to do what you need them to be able to do. So modern methodology and pedagogy for teaching and retaining tennis players is called game-based coaching, right? That's where it's based around the game. This came from the idea back in an English university called Loughborough back in the 70s, where they understood that teaching games for understanding created a sense amongst people, right, that they got really excited about the game. So the learner got excited about a game, seeing it, they got an appreciation for the game, create an idea of what they had to accomplish in the game, right? So in tennis, it's getting every ball back into play, finding a way that your opponent could possibly make an error, right? And then start to develop skills to make yourself better and perform the game better, right? And it became sort of a cycle. That got translated by a Swiss tennis instructor, right? Where he called it méthode des actions, which basically transfers now into actions method, where you're constantly moving, right? You're playing the game, you're learning the game, you're getting better at the game. Tennis Canada adopted that strategy back in the late 80s, right? And that methodology. And since then, the ITF has identified that as the best way to be able to develop athletes. So the idea that game-based coaching, building players, teaching players around the game, created a need for children to be able to use equipment that'll help them play the game immediately, right? If they're using equipment that's large, heavy, right, in game areas, surfaces, courts that are long, wide, right? It becomes very difficult for their bodies to be able to play the game in a way that adults play the game, right? So the USTA saw that potential in this back in the very early to mid 2000s.
Change is coming to tennis, and kids are leading the way. It's called 10 and under tennis, and it's a fun way for your kids to really learn the game. With courts and equipment modified to fit them, kids will develop faster and better and enjoy themselves along the way. So get your kids involved now. With 10 and under tennis, every child can learn to love the game.
So kind of an older marketing thing that the USTA used, but you could see, right? I mean, they proved the point that kids need equipment that will allow them to be able to play the game effectively and learn it fast. Right. So research has shown that the use of modified equipment definitely accelerates learning, right? And so changing the pedagogy towards something that's more game-based was really important. And as you saw in the commercial by by USTA in 2012, the ITF created that change, right? They got all the top 25 tennis nations on board to be able to say, okay, you must use the scaled equipment in your tournaments in designated ages, right? Along with balls and rackets in those ages for your sanctioned tournaments. So that means USTA, like all the other top 25 tennis nations, have to be able to abide by this. The beauty of this, though, right, is it's not just some kind of a gimmick. And I kind of hear that by older coaches, right, that it's a gimmick. The reality is when you use it and you get kids playing the game early on, they start developing a lot like adults, especially competent adults, right? So in this video, you can see that the kids that are going to be playing, they'll show kids in the beginning, and they'll overlap that video into here with adults. That the tempo of play, which the tempo means like the time between impacts of players, the tempo of play is very similar to high-level professionals, right? The tactical level of play is similar to high-level professionals. And of course, then the physical and tactical needs and skills have to be, right, very similar to those that are created by adults. So you can clearly see that even though the kids are hitting slower than the higher level adult players, because of the court dimensions, it creates a game that's very similar to the adults with tempo, right, and level of play and tactical proficiencies that are very similar to adults. Right?
Yes, yes, right.
So, you know, you see a lot of good point play, right, and good athletes, but the question is, you know, how do you really use the equipment? Especially if you're kind of coming from a background of feeding balls or having balls fed to you when you were young with adult-sized equipment. So, you know, there's curriculum that's available, and the national governing bodies offer this information, right? Both Tennis Canada and the USTA have curriculum that's open to the public for anyone to use, right? People in Canada don't necessarily have to be part of Tennis Canada's certification organization to be able to access it. It's open to anyone, right? Some of the other things on their coaching website is not accessible if you're not part of their certified professionals list. But their kids tennis is available, right? The USTA NetGen also offers, right, curriculum development. Right, so Tennis Canada has a large supply of it, right? And under their kids tennis tab, you can find all sorts of red court. They have a red court curriculum in book form that goes basically from beginning to end of red court. Same for orange. They have a long-term athlete development as well as more recreational curriculum, such as their learn to play models. So this is an excerpt from one of the videos in their files there that you can access. I'm gonna actually accelerate to here.
Moves with stability towards the intended target.
So I'm going to show you an example here of developing a technical fundamental called hitting zone, which USTA calls extension. So I'm going to show you it with this, and then a few other Canadian videos that show a very similar technical fundamental.
Towards the intended target. For better control of direction, players should extend the racket face toward the target for a longer distance. This provides a margin of safety, so the ball can be contacted anywhere in the zone and still go in the intended direction. They should feel the face of the strings moving towards their intended target. Players should use a laid-back wrist to stabilize their racket face through the impact. Hi, I'm Neil Parker. Welcome back to GBA Tennis. Just had a chance to watch Marcos Baghdatis here in Vancouver. Check out his hitting zone on his two-handed backhand. A hitting zone is the distance your strings travel in one direction towards the target. We've represented that here with some tennis balls. You can see he could hit the ball in any one of those areas, and it's going to go where he wants the ball to go. So it's a very long distance that his strings travel towards the target. He really extends his arms forward. Incredible backhand and incredible hitting zone from Marcos Baghdatis. All right, in contrast, we see another player here. You can see the arms still very close to the body. It's a circular path, so the strings are not going out towards the target as long as they should be.
And here's another one, right? This is actually Tennis Canada's Learn to Play curriculum, right? So it's for more of the community-based, right, or recreational play.
Although you can see in the content that each activity emphasizes particular teaching points, any fundamental teaching point could be developed in any particular activity. In this video, you will see 3 different ways to use the activities to develop the fundamentals. The first way is to pick up a specific activity and use it to develop all the 5 fundamentals.
I'm actually going to go right to the fundamental we're looking at.
Ensuring that the strings of the racket are facing the target before, during, and after the impact.
So USTA also has curriculum. They put a lot of their curriculum on their app, which anyone can download and access. So they also have technical fundamentals. They have tactical understanding of the game. They also have different games that kids can play on court, right, to help develop things. USTA also endorses other pedagogical methods, right? So USPTA is on court with USPTA, and Craig Jones, who's now working with USTA, has done a number of videos. Here's an example of one.
There are 6 different specifications for play on the 36-foot court. Let's start first with age. Anyone can play and learn on the 36-foot court, but the competition is limited to kids ages 8 and under.
Let me see your racket. This is not good at this. Can you roll it to me, Alex? Watch. This does not mean you're good at this. Good, Alex. Keep going. I'm really bored.
The first step is to teach kids to roll, toss, and catch with each other.
All right, now go back to your right hand when you toss. Use your right hand. There you go. Good. That's a great toss. Keep it in front of you the whole time, Jackie. Don't wave it behind you. Keep it in front the whole time.
Asking questions is an important step towards developing independence and self-reliance.
So who do you think is going to be in trouble on the short ball? The king of the court's going to be in trouble.
Keep the questions simple and allow different kids to answer.
So that's basically it. You know, I'm giving you a sense of where to find curriculum, and then how to be able to use it in a more game-based sense. So far, any questions?
If any of you guys have questions, you're welcome to throw them in the chat box, and we'll take a look at them. Thank you, Jason. I think the footage and the quality of the curriculum is just worlds better than it's ever been, right? And it's more accessible than it's ever been. And I think that that is just so important for so many of the coaches. I'm going to just load up my screen here. And, you know, I think, you know, Jason, when I first was introduced to 10 and under tennis, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really great, well thought out, and curious to see how it's going to be implemented, right? And I think that the coaches that are using it and have access to it, it's a no-brainer. For me, looking at net generation in the curriculum, I think it's an incredible standard for the industry. I think the videos are extremely high quality. The production of it is really good. Like I just mentioned, the curriculum is really well thought out. It keeps the kids' attention, keeps them active, and it allows for them to have great success. You showed some of the Canadian videos, Jay. I'm gonna show a couple of the NetGen videos that we probably have seen, but I just want you guys, from a production standpoint, and if you were to get your staff to do this, this is pretty easy stuff to be able to follow.
This is ice cream cones with partner. Players are in pairs, spread out around the court. One player tosses, the other catches with a cone. The ball is tossed up. at least to head level. The partner lets the ball bounce and catches in the upturned cone at waist level. Once successful, the ball can be tossed higher and farther.
You know, this kind of activities and curriculums, we use this all the time for when we're in the community, when we have typically like double-digit kids to pros, we'll have them doing these kind of activities. Now, these activities that you just saw were, this activity was red ball, but we created our own similar games that simulate the same kind of sensations, the catching, the hitting. One of the kids' favorite games when I first took over the program was jail, you know, and one of the things that they love about jail is being able to catch a ball. And what I found very frustrating about jail is when they're trying to miss the ball to get to jail. So we created a couple other games that kind of allow the kids to work together, encourage them to make the ball in the court. And it's kind of a combination of half-pound lobster trap and ice cream cone with a partner, but we have them do it over the net. What I really do enjoy about the NetGen curriculum is the different skills that it gives the kids, right? The character skills, the team games, the athletic skills, tennis skills, game skills, and at-home skills. I think all of that stuff is fantastic, and the way that they have it all laid out pretty cleanly. When you again present to your staff this kind of stuff, and you have videos to back it up, it becomes easier to schedule like a staff meeting and be able to talk about these things and go over the direction of your curriculum and your program. Again, from a director side, this material is fantastic because it's already there. You don't need to feed when you're on the court. This gives you the opportunity to walk around with the kids, help the kids that need the help. And once you get a good sense of the curriculum, it really allows the pros to allow their personality to shine. You know, once they know what games they're doing, what the rotations and the order is, that's when you really get to see the relationship between the kid and the pro. And that's ever so important in addition to just memorizing curriculum. Just to be clear, we support all the whole Rogi pathway, from foam, red, orange, green, and yellow. We support it all. Our curriculum is based around some of the NetGen activities, but most of our orange ball curriculum in particular that I'm going to be talking about today is based around the success of the red ball kids. And so we have two levels of red ball kids. We have our red entry and our red intermediate. And once they progress from red intermediate, or when they're in the middle of red intermediate, we get them to do what's called a red rally club, where they learn how to rally together. They are rewarded for getting rallies up to 4, 6, 8, 10 with their partner. They're rewarded with Mike Barrel's Court Warrior cards that gives them like these superpowers during the point play that they can use before the point or after the point, so that they could call the ball out. They can reverse the score. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with this. But in Red Rally Club, we teach them to work together, collect these cards, and then the second half of Red Rally, which is an hour-and-a-half program, they are working on and they're learning how to play, you know, like a 7-point tiebreaker, very loose version of that, of a tiebreaker. And Jay, you've brought your kids over to our place, and we've done that. And again, just a very informal introduction to match play. But those kids get moved into our orange ball intermediate. And that again is based around the success of kids on red ball, just being able to get it back and forth. In orange ball, now it's not just getting it back and forth, but it is now they're learning more of the skills, volleys, how to cover the 36-foot court, It's a lot bigger, or the 60-foot court. It's a lot bigger than the 36-foot court. So the physicality becomes an issue. This is where we introduce in our curriculum just very minimal exercises, 10 jumping jacks, 3 push-ups, 5 mountain climbers. The purpose isn't for punishment. The purpose is to expose the kids to different exercises that they are going to need to be able to do to help them perform better. In our Orange Ball Intermediate, they're learning how to hit volleys and overheads. We do not stress grips at this point. These Orange Ball kids are the ones that in our program, again, have had the success of Red Ball. They're just starting to figure things out on the court. And if particular kids are showing more drive where they want to win more, they want to do better, that's where we start introducing more of the technique. We've found that just introducing technique at a very early age, the kids become a lot more disengaged, and especially at that entry level, and it becomes harder for them to want to continue to stay. So we start to introduce more of the technique at the Orange Ball level when they're learning their volleys, when they're learning their overheads, when they're learning more of a full serve instead of a grip it and rip it serve. They're learning about serve returns. And then we also do doubles. We feel like it's important for these younger kids to be able to create that team bond and to be able to learn how to share on the court and off the court. But those are some important parts of our curriculum and how we deliver our curriculum. Typically for our Orange Ball entry level class, they're 1 hour and they're 4 weeks long, because we're not sure, and they're not sure, most of these kids, if tennis is right for them. So we don't lock them into more than 4 weeks for the entry level kids. We do in an average class about 10 minutes of some racket skills, and we try to get them to do some mini tennis, because eventually we want them to progress into that intermediate class where they are going to be doing mini tennis. But they do about 10 minutes of some self-feeding and some skills acquisition where they're learning how to control the strings, where they're playing the racket, again, for the entry-level kids. And then we do some partner activity games where they're trying to hit it softer to each other so that they can either catch the ball or bump the ball back. And we usually go up to a very low number rallies. So again, they have that success. And then about 30 minutes is gameplay. In our program, we do a lot of champ of the court. We think that playing games and being able to apply and trying to apply what they're working on is really critical. But we do spend about 30 minutes at the entry level playing some games. And this is where the kids are going to be able to either make it or break it. They're either going to be able to figure out how to get the ball in play, or again, because we don't do a lot of pro feeding for Orange entry, this is when the pro is able to spend a little more time with that kid who is struggling. For our Orange Ball Intermediate, these are typically an hour and a half, and these are the kids, again, who are invested. They've had success at Red Ball. They've been coming to our program for quite a bit now. And these kids are an hour and a half program, 8 weeks long. First 15 minutes is typically some types of mini tennis progressions where they're working together, again, low numbers, doing some exercises in between rounds, rotating partners around. So again, they get that sense of partnership. And we do, depends on the class, but maybe about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, it depends, of drills where, again, these are the Orange Ball Intermediate kids. So now we want to spend a little more time, especially when we're doing the volleys and the overheads and the doubles and serve and serve returns, of just letting them know, giving them more of the technical and tactical aspects of where they should be and what they're trying to accomplish out there. Overall, from a broader sense, for our red intermediate kids, who are an hour and a half long. We want them to have fun. We want them to fall in love with the sport that we love. We want them to learn some basic tennis skills. For our red ball, we only teach them forehands, backhands, and serves. We do spend a lot of time on teamwork and building team camaraderie. And we do spend a lot of time on gameplay, kind of like what Jason, you were saying beforehand, is that the kids want to play. So we spend a lot of time on the gameplay. As I mentioned earlier, they go into the Red Rally Club after they've started the Red Intermediate. And in Red Rally Club, that's where they're learning match play. That's where they're continuing to learn how to work together. For our orange ball entry, again, on a broader sense, we want them to learn about mental skills. And that means whether it's socializing on the court with other kids, whether it's learning how to think on the court. Some of these kids we need to tell them how to be thinking about winning points or how they're playing on the court. I'm sure, Jay, you get a lot of, when you ask your kids, how'd you do? Good. I don't know. And what we start to do at this orange intermediate level is teach them how to think and how to evaluate how well they're doing compared to last time, compared to 6 months ago, compared to a year ago, and just get them to have that general sense of where they are in their own progression. We want them to focus on, or to think about their physical skills. You know, are they physically able to play these points? And as you saw, and as we've all seen from some of these points these kids are having, they're physical points. They're full on swinging at the ball, and they're moving all over the place. I think it's fantastic, but for some of these kids, they're not quite used to that. We also, and I briefly talked about the technical skills, but for our technical skills, we try to keep it pretty simple with our kids, especially for the red and the orange entry. But a lot of it is just making sure the strings are pointing where they want the ball to go, similar to the videos you were showing, and finishing their follow-throughs. Once they get to that orange ball intermediate, now they're learning there's different shots where the volley, they have to stop the contact. They can't follow through. The overhead has a shortened backswing. And this is all new stuff to those kids. And last but not least is the technical aspect, getting the kids to think about where they're hitting the ball, how often they're hitting the ball. I'm a big believer in the entry-level players focusing on consistency, getting that ball in play. Doesn't matter how fast, where it goes, just getting it in play and actually playing the sport. At the intermediate level, typically that's where it turns up a notch, and now they're working on their accuracy, hitting the ball where they want it to go. And in an 8-week program, sometimes it's just not enough time to go over all these skills, but we do make sure that we give kids 2 weeks, and our staff 2 weeks for each of these kind of themes to work on with the kids. And as most of you know, as instructors on the court, some weeks are better than others. Some weeks the material really sinks in well. Some weeks we do have to do it all over again. I talked a bit about the orange intermediate. This is for our staff as well, to basically understand what it is that we're looking for from our orange intermediate ball kids. And this is, again, the mental, physical, technical, and tactical things that we're looking for from our kids, and that we're trying to teach them, so that when they leave orange ball and go into green, now they're better prepared. I brought a few videos of our kids, and again, this is our orange intermediate class. Again, as an intermediate class, we're still working on quite a lot of things, but these kids aren't entry level. Half of these kids are starting to do, or have started to play orange ball tournaments. One of them is just about to switch to, I think he just got enough points to go to level 1. even though they're going to be changing all the levels starting next month. But I have a few different situational games here. We got some running forehand champ, running backhand, and you can see the kids. I'll let you guys see. So this is one of our backhand champ games. This is one of our kids, Justin. He has played, I think, just enough tournaments to move on to level 1. I love Phoebe when she just drops her racket and runs. And in this game, if you win, you go to the champion side. If you lose in the champion side, you go to the challenger side. And here we're just introducing these running backhand skills for these kids and getting them used to hitting on the run. Most of them are getting their follow throughs across their body. It's not perfect by any stretch or mean, but this is where, again, the physicality in this specific situational game is what we're looking for the kids. How well are they moving? This is different than they're used to from red ball, and it's going to be different than when they get to green ball. So this is, in this game, this is tower power, where the kids have to hit the first ball in the air, and I believe they have to hit all of them in the air. But this is, again, where we're just introducing the volleys. This is probably one of their first volley games that the kids will be playing. And after doing drills for about 40 minutes, where we'll work on a little bit of everything, but if it's volleys and overheads we're focused on that week, we will spend a little extra time going over their ready position, moving towards the ball, their wrist when they're hitting it, and we start to introduce some video analysis. This is Champ of the Court, and again, as I mentioned, this is where we just start to have that conversation with grips. As you can see, Justin had a full-on Eastern, maybe even semi-Western grip for his serve. That's something that we are working on with him, and a lot of the kids are still using those grips, and until they are confident that they're ready to compete and get those balls in play, we don't usually touch those grips until that point. But I think for our curriculum, and when we're curriculum building, we're trying to think about what we want them to be able to do, where they're coming from, and where they're going. This is a conversation that I think everyone should be having with their staff, with their program directors, just to at least get a sense of where is all of the coaches, where are all of you guys with your curriculum? How well do you guys deliver similar curriculums? Jay, I know that for you, Jason, you have a little bit of a different situation because you are the main coach there. But for some other clubs where they have multiple coaches teaching the same level, this curriculum building conversation is really critical to be able to have some continuity in the classes that you're offering. So that's how we've kind of come to where we are with our curriculum. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's not perfect. I'm not here to say that our curriculum is the best, but this is what is working for us, and it's always evolving. And we're just excited to get these kids playing and have that interest in the kids. And as they get better, then we start turning up specifically the technical, the technique, the grips, and the positioning a lot more. So Jay, with your kids, because your kids as well, you have a bunch of kids that are moving from red to orange, correct? Now, how do you create your curriculum around that? I assume it's going to be different than mine, but what is it that is important to you when you're thinking about their curriculum?
Going from red to orange is a big jump. Going from any court dimension to the next size up is a huge change, right? And red to orange is big because, as you said, you have, it's the same scaled up. It's the same dimensional sizes, but scaled up almost double the size. It's about 2/3 the size bigger. And for me, you know, the beginning part is just having a comfortable sense of the ball speed, because the red ball and the orange balls are different. They move in flight differently. They bounce differently. So that's a big difference for kids. That was the first step. And then the second step is, like you'd pointed out earlier, right? With a larger space to cover, they have to become more physical, right? And that means moving laterally really, really well, moving forwards and backwards really well. And, you know, I mean, this is, our presentation today is simply a survey of this. It's simply just shaving off the top surface of this, right? Yeah. But as you start digging into it, you know, things, when it comes to changing from like red to orange, orange to green, when it comes to changing court sizes and changing ball speeds, it becomes very challenging, especially at different age groups, right? From red to orange, many kids still don't have depth perception that's really detailed. Right. So on an orange court, when the ball comes faster and deeper, it's very difficult for them to recognize that, right? And so we do a lot of work in perception skills, right? Trying to recognize the ball as early as possible and trying to prepare as early as possible, so that, you know, as their bodies develop and as their systems develop, right, they're already prepared with those skills, and they can make the jump a bit quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, you know, there's also not just the curriculum side and thinking about it, but it's also the director side, you know, getting everybody on board, getting everyone to have this conversation, so that there's that continuity in those classes. And if there's someone on your staff who doesn't agree, that's where you start to hash these conversations out, where at least you can come to an understanding of what it is that is expected of the pro to teach out there, right?
For sure, absolutely, for sure. I'm gonna address Zach White's question. Zach put something in the chat, which was, you know, I think stirs a good conversation. Which was, what is your methodology for recognizing that it's time for a player to adapt the equipment and progress to the next set of demands, equipment, court space, and so on?
You know, that's a great question, because, you know, Jason, watching some of your videos, you're watching those kids play those amazing points, and I'm thinking to myself, and I would assume other coaches are thinking to themselves, man, if I had those kids in my program, I'm pretty sure the parents would not be happy that they're still, you know, that they're still playing on a smaller court. And that's, Zach, that's a really good question. And for us in our program, when kids are ready to move up, you know, a lot of that is based on how many tournaments they're doing. Our program is heading in a direction where you got to be playing USTA red ball or orange ball tournaments, you know, to essentially show us and yourself that you are able to apply what you're learning. And we give kids a hard time if they're not competing and they want to move up, because there's no real way to say, hey, you're ready. Is it because this kid won running backhand champ of the court? Does that qualify them to move up to the next level? No. You know, and for us in our program, it is about applying what you're learning. How well are you applying what you're learning? If you aren't playing points, it's going to be hard to apply it. Now, yeah, that means some kids aren't going to compete, and that's fine. But they're the ones who also mentally and physically they're not putting out as much effort as the ones that are, and do see the kids that, you know, Jason, you bring to Rochester, or the kids that come from Syracuse as well. They start seeing those kids, and they just realize there's a whole nother world out there. So Jay, how do you address that?
Yeah, that's I think you have a really good foundation for that. You know, for me, I think the equipment, the court size, those are a little bit different. So, you know, you see the players I bring to you, they use small rackets, right? Smaller than most kids that are in the tournament. I have a big belief that the racket you use cannot be too small, right? But it could be too big. And with the right size racket, if the racket is small, right, kids can accelerate up on their serve and have a high impact. They can come in and volley and open up their hand and volley and not feel like they're going to lose wrist stability and racket angle stability, right? They feel like they can have good rotation with their body and accelerate on ground strokes. And so for me, it's the harder when it comes to racket size. It's the things like serve, height, impact, volleys. Are they competent with volleys, right, as they're playing points? And then also the ability to be moved laterally and be able to create racket speed, right? Have dynamic balance and create racket speed. And when I can see those sorts of things, then I'm like, all right, let's start moving up to the next size racket. When it comes to court dimension, that's a more difficult one. You know, that for me is more based on age and height of children, right? Because you nailed it, right? When kids move to an orange court, there's more space, right? Yeah. They got to be able to cover that more space. They got to be more physical, and then so on, going from orange to green as well. And so for me, it's more the physicality of it, right? Have they grown enough where they can start to cover the court with their legs? Are they physical enough to be able to move and cover the court? And I think you know, there's a for me, it's not, kids don't go red to orange, right, or orange to green. There's this blended time, right? Yeah. There's time where, and it's a good 3 to 6 months where they're really playing both court dimensions, right? They're transitioning to the next court size up, but at the same time they're still playing, training a bit in the previous court size. And there's really nothing at all wrong with that. There's nothing at all wrong with kids playing in courts that are smaller than usual, right? I mean, I had a couple of orange ball kids play some red ball, and you know, the one girl just comes up and does a swing volley winner, right? I mean, she was never taught a swing volley, never done anything like that, but she did it because she could do it, right? Because she's playing in orange court, right? And all of a sudden she's playing red court, a smaller court, a little slower ball. She has the time to see those things earlier, move in position earlier, and be able to execute. So, and then it builds her confidence. So there's definitely a transition period with the two.
And it's interesting you mentioned that transition period, and what's been really frustrating for us is and everybody, but since the lockdown, we were starting to have these new groups, advanced groups, where it's orange advanced, where we're teetering on a green advanced, and a red advanced, where exactly what you said, Jay. Half of the class is on one ball, the other half is on the other ball, and we would do that for just that advanced level. But again, with the lockdown, with the shutdown, it was just too much. Not enough kids at the right levels were able to put classes together. So we had to prematurely move some kids up, and we had to hold some kids back, and it was very frustrating for us because, Jay, I agree with you. And I think that's really important, that transition. You can't, well, I shouldn't say you can't, but it's really difficult to throw a kid from red right onto orange. Forget about just the tennis as it is, but also the emotional experience as well. Those kids on the orange ball, they're now a little more social than the red ball kids. They're a little more cliquey than the red ball kids, And so it's also that different, how do I fit in? And they start realizing that social aspect is also part of it,
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I think it's something to I identify, right, with just circling back to Zach, right? I think, you hit it. I find the same issues, right? You have a group of kids who are all developing together, but no one person, no one child or anyone, no one person learns the same speed, right? No one person learns the same way. No one person has the same motivation. And of course, no one child grows the exact same, right? They're all growing at different speeds. They're all changing at different speeds. So it's very challenging. The group that I bring up to you, it's like, that's my competitive group. The group that I bring, to come to your place, Jason, they you know, when we played the last tournament, which was last month, you know, they all just transitioned from red to orange, but there's no doubt about it. They were not all good orange ball players, right? I mean, you could see there's a wide range in there. And if I was in a larger program, I probably wouldn't have transitioned all those kids. But because they're all a group, they're all socially connected, and even the lowest level one was okay, was competent.
Yes.
Right? It's sometimes you have to make that decision and say, all right, I know the group is the large part of the group's ready to transition. Can the tail end, can the caboose hang in, right? While you do that, and ideally play some, you know, smaller sized events as well, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, with COVID, so we were traveling, you know, over to Ontario in 2019. We played 6 tournaments in Ontario in 2019 in red ball, because there was a lot more red ball competition over there than this way, right? We came to your place 4 times because, you know, you and I just said let's build up let's have a little team competition, right? But you know, you don't see that there's many red ball competition in this way. Yeah, exactly. And so so we did that, but now with COVID, we can't get over the border, right? So everything has to be here, and that's basically orange ball tournaments.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely that's definitely a challenge. But you know, one of the things that you know, from a program director point of view, your challenges in a smaller club are different than mine with a larger program than yours. But my problems are different than, you know, some of the larger clubs with the staffing and getting everybody on board. And as
true.
You know, as most of us know, the larger the staff, the more points of view you're going to have, and probably the more different point of views you're going to have. But it's, again, very interesting how all these curriculums, whether, you know, you're independent like yourself, a small place like myself, or, you know, even a larger corporation, you know, how you have come to your curriculum and what you're doing and how you're doing it should be examined periodically. You should be going over it with folks, with your program directors. And, you know, one of the sensations that I think some pros need to be careful with is oftentimes pros feel like they're stale doing the same stuff with the same level of kids, right? And they feel like I just need to do something different with the kids. But when you're from the kids' angle point of view, each ball level, they're learning different things. So it should be the same at each ball level. It should be some kind of consistency in how it's being delivered, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. But I think, you know, that will also be based on the type of program that it is, the type of group that it is, right? If it's a more recreational group, then you probably could spread out and do more different tactical situations, more different, right? If it's a more competitive group, it's going to be about development, and you're gonna train it till you get it.